But the sweetest moments make love stick around till nothing else means as much as a look and a kiss and a single touch. Testify to tenderness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uncle Show. We are back, and our folks, just guys, man, these interviews keep getting bigger and better. Uncle Rhino is excited about this one. Tell us a little bit about this guy, Rhino.
I've known this man going on 30 years. He is still and was my favorite voice in Nashville. Incredible writer, incredible artist. And I've been proud to call him a friend for a long time. And when we recently picked up, it was like, for me at least, no time had passed. And that's how it is with the real ones. And I want to reintroduce Mr. Bill Luther to the tribe.
Well, thank you so
Bill?
much. Yeah, I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here this morning. I think we're going to have some fun talking about stuff once we get settled in. There's so many things I could say and talk about with this, but we can, talk about what y'all want to talk about. First and foremost, I love music. I always have. It's been one of the greatest things in my life. One of the stories I tell when we were in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'll say this one. When I was in West Palm Beach, Florida, I was about 5 years old. And my mother, who had been she was in the Air Force. She was actually in Korea and Japan, then got out, went into the Navy, and then met my dad, and then went in and became an E8 in the United States Army. I'm wearing my brother's hat. He was a company commander in Orlando, and my dad was 20 years in the Navy. So it gives you a little bit of that story and stuff like that in the background. We were in the car, and this is a true story, guys. We're in the car. When the Kennedys lost their son, they lost their son because they didn't have the lungs weren't fully developed, and that's what happened to my brother Nathan. He died, so they both died on the same day. And I'll never forget this. My mom would smoke, what do they call them? Kent cigarettes. She never got smoke on us, too. She'd always have it go out the window. I never felt like there was smoke on us. It was just amazing. And we were driving down Lantana Avenue in West Palm Beach, Florida. And we were going there to my brother's grave. And we got there, and for a moment, my mom had looked down. Well, before I say that, on the way going there, American Pie came on. Took you on a Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And I heard that as a kid, and I remember that was the very first song that I just loved, and everybody else did too. But it was the first time I heard it when we were going down there to the graveyard. And so that's my first thing of music was that. The first thing where I just kept saying to my mom, oh, I love that so much. I love that so much. But anyhow, so we got through all of that, and I lived up north, Pennsylvania. I lived down in West Palm Beach, Florida. I went to first grade at West Palm Beach Elementary. I went to ninth grade at John I. Leonard. It's funny, with the John I. Leonard, we had a radio station right there on the school campus, and this was a high school. And I can remember here John Anderson coming over the radio, just a swinging. I don't know if you remember that. And that was a song that just was played over and over again. And I'm like, play it again, damn it. And the only thing I would say with John that was better than that song was Seminole Wind, which just absolutely killed me.
That is
he was
my
about
favorite
to
John Anderson song.
Oh my God. It blow, blow. Just such a great song. I love that. Just him out there on the
well, it kind of hits you good too, because it's from down in Florida. It's hitting home.
Oh yeah. That's where we were down there. Florida was a lot of fun as a kid. It was weird too, because I lived up north too. I was in the first grade up there, second grade, and all that. And but then when my mom and dad would split up, it was like a soap opera. And but we all kind of came out of it. We did pretty good stuff like that. But I always loved music, and obviously like a lot of us. But I just remember hearing those first few songs, and just how much they just stamped it on me. That I thought I just, man, I wanted to be a singer. But I wasn't really knowing what that was back then outside of just really loving it. It was years later that somebody finally gave me a guitar. But I grew up around a guy named Dusty Rhodes, and that's Randy's dad. But I talked a minute ago, if we heard them on the tape. But so anyway, I would go down to his place. He was a big band guy. I mean, played all over the place, had a big orchestra, and he had stuff in his garage. And I would go down to his garage and hang around as long as I could. Once I started touching stuff, he'd say, "Well, we got to go ahead." He'd always do that. And I started messing. That's what he was, such a sweet guy. Just up to the end, he was just such a sweet guy. But anyway, I guess one of the crazy things that happened to me was that when I had come back from Florida, before I went down to Florida, I was with a friend of mine, and his brother Sonny was there, and he was an older guy and stuff like that. Well, these friends of ours are my buddy's parents. They were going to drag us to church. So, and I hadn't been to church. I went to a church where it was kind of a bummer, but and didn't know enough about it. But his name was Sonny, and we were supposed to get picked up by Jim's mother. Well, in between, Sonny came and took us down the road there before all that and pulled a big joint out. And I would say this joint might have killed Cheech and Chong. I mean, I'm not kidding you right now, dude. I'm telling you what, we were absolutely so completely stoned. And I think we were like maybe 13 or probably 13, just completely stoned out of our minds. And we were waiting for Jimmy's mom to come pick us up. And we for one reason, we just didn't, we should have just took off, But oh no, we got to stay here. She's coming, even though we were completely stoned. So we get in this church, and it's jam packed full of people, and it's everything but people with snakes. I mean, it was just so crazy, and we are blazed out of our minds, totally freaking out. This guy kept looking at us and everything like that. And anyway, when it was over, we just bolted. So then I went back down to Florida, and when I came back, that same church was there, and some friends of mine were there. And my friend, Brenda Jessup, she goes, "Yeah, you should go to church with us tonight." No, I said, "I've been to that church." She says, "No, this church is all different and everything." And sure enough, this church was a quintessential moment for me as a person, as a young man. I remember, Bob Osborne and Ray and Patty DeRaps. I remember all these people that were there, and Carol Osborne, and a preacher had come in from another church, and I sat in the back pew, and it hit me. They had this thing to come forward, and I couldn't believe it. Something just said, "Get up and go forward." I'm like, "No way, I'm not getting up." But I got up, and I went about halfway. I didn't get all the way to the front. I stopped at one of the pews, and Bob Osborne came over, and he gave me a couple of scriptures and stuff. And it was really weird because before this happened, I don't want to lose this, and I don't want to get too high into this whole thing. But I was sitting there, and I just felt this voice that I never felt before. I didn't think, whatever. There was no anything for me on this. And I just felt a small voice that said, "Go forward." And I did. And everything changed. And I remember that night when I got home, I just felt so different. My dad was coming in from drinking all night or whatever, he'd been drinking. And I'll never forget, he was coming in the house, and I was coming up through the yard, and he was stepping up the stairs and said, "Dad," I said, "I got saved." And my dad just turned and just bolted and was gone. He was like, "I'm out of here, man. I'm not even going to go down." I mean, he freaked out. And then after that, yeah, I just got involved with a lot of stuff. And so at that time, a friend of mine and this girlfriend of mine, Brenda, and Steve Eicher, and Kenny Atnick, and I'll just say this to get this part through, but they got me a guitar, and I started playing guitar. Started making up songs, just sitting around. At first, I was on like tweaking on a couple strings, and I'd go down to Dusty's place where he'd tune it for me because I didn't know how to tune it. And that was the beginning of that, of music. But I also grew up around a bunch of daggone potheads, man, and they were funny and they were great. I was a little kid sitting in the front room of our house, and the first episode of Kung Fu came on.
Oh my
And the
God.
house smelled like pot, and I couldn't believe my dad was even letting them in there. But every hippie when my brother had an afro, every hippie that was in there was crammed into that room. And it was the first episode. It was the one where he kicked the knife and it went up and stuck in the ceiling like that. And everybody's like, "Oh shit!" But yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. And so I went on hippies, and and just doing my thing later on as I got in, like I said, with that thing around the church, and just started learning how to play guitar and
And how old were
started,
you right there?
I was probably about 15, 14, something like that. I wanted to be older because there was a girl that I wanted to date.
Of course you did.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah, man. Oh yeah, there's only been a few girls in my life, and it's always been, we all have a little weird thing that happens, whatever. It's like, you know, you didn't really like this person or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then, you found out they were really great and stuff like that. But I never really had any girlfriends. I love to be around my sister's friends because they were girls. So if they were have something going on, I'd try to hang out with them. And then we had some girls down the street, stuff like that. And it's funny how everybody grows up, and now everybody, I have people on my Facebook, and we all know each other, man. Everybody's great. We
You
grew up in a
remember
little
that
break
night we
town.
were watching Kung Fu and everybody was high?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was, man. And my brother, he was such a hippie, man. But so I ended up going back down to Florida again, and down on Hyplexa Highway down there, and I got in a church down there and was playing in a church, and I sucked, and everybody hated me. We actually did a song one night, and I blew it. It was just crazy, man. And whatever his name was, Ray Rolls or something like that. We had the head pastor was there. I freaking got everybody out of freaking. I was like, well, crap, I can't do this, you know. So anyway, but then I came back to Pennsylvania from Florida, and it was a whole new thing there, And there was a great guy there. His name was John Creeks, and he just really took me underneath his wing, man, and just was just a real great mentor. And he really was, passionate about my music and stuff like that. He was putting me up on the stage, and I wasn't making mistakes. We had an Easter Sunday where me and my friend Jim Moore, we played "He's Alive," and we blew the place out. The church was packed. You couldn't. It was a huge church, packed the first part of the church, and then the second session of the church, it was packed. And it was just, and everybody was freaked out. I don't even know how it happened, what happened. People were crying. It was just absolutely crazy. It was one of the coolest things, but like a powerful thing that happened. So that was a really cool thing. And he just, John just kept, pushing me to keep, working on the music. So I kept writing and stuff. Working with a friend of mine, not John, but with Jim Morta, who's just a great guy from the 70s. It's like he played in bands and stuff like that. So we started playing stuff, and we started going out and playing like songs from like John Michael Talbot, people like that. So I kind of been all over the place, and but I grew up also with my dad in the bar, and I would get quarters and go play songs, and popping them in that daggone machine, and listening to when we get behind closed doors,
Love
and
Me
she
Some
lets her
Charlie Rich.
hand, huh? Oh yeah, man, all that stuff.
1973-ish.
Yeah. So I listened to all that stuff. Was a little older. My dad's stuff was a little older. I wasn't really into Hank Williams at that time. I did love John Denver, but anyhow, the thing that really hit me the hardest is when the frickin' Gambler came on the radio, and
Mhm.
I will never forget the way that made me feel. On a warm summer night, the train bound for nowhere. I mean, it just, and I wanted to listen to it over and over. We had a little radio station, 103 in Connie Lake, where I lived, and every time it came on, I just wanted to listen to it. And I think that's what really got me with country music is I just loved his voice. And of course all the older people too. And then of course you kind of just keep going with what you're doing. And I started once I got married, I started getting into all kinds of music. Dwight Yoakam and Steve Earle, and he's the guy that's the song "The Gospel According to Luke." Remember those songs when you came here?
Skip Ewing.
Skip Ewing. Oh my gosh, you guys! I mean, I just was like, the coast of Colorado, and
I loved me some Burning a Hole in My Heart.
oh yeah, man, unbelievable stuff. Great songwriters, man. So we got to basically we were going to go ahead and move to Nashville. So we packed up, baby, and headed down to Nashville. We stayed with a friend of mine that had been in Pennsylvania, but he went to his place. We stayed there one night. My wife is real industrious. She got up and just jumped up and took off. I didn't know where she was. Came back and said, "Hey, I got us an apartment." We had no furniture. So we got that. Well, what she said, come on, we got to go get it. So we went to get it. And we got there. It was a brand new apartment. There was nothing in it though, but everything was just clean and perfect. We had our little daughter, our first daughter, with us, and we got there just in time. Got the $100 deposit, and got in that apartment. And then little by little, as people would come through or come down, they'd drop something off, get us a chair or something like that. My brother brought me a stereo, bought me an Onkyo system. Oh, just all that stuff. Just little by little. Well, we started kind of worrying because we had money coming down. And then my wife was like, man, I'm going to have to get a job. I said, just keep praying. We're going to get a job. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And this is, like I said, all these people I named, this is that far back when I got there. And no kidding, dude. She took an interview downtown on Music Row, went in there, and they hired her. And it was an artist agency. Keith Whitley, Lori Morgan, Sawyer Brown, everybody. I was so jealous. My wife just jumped into the music business. She just, bam, was in there. And it was cool because afterwards, the girl Lanny, that had interviewed her, said, well, one of the reasons I hired you is because you're a non-smoker. I thought, wow, geez, people might want to think about that. But so then now we're down there, and I don't want to tell my whole story here, but I got down there and finally met Karen Conrad. Ryan knows who that is, and all those different pluggers. I mean, Ryan knows all the people just like I do, man. And it's like, and they were all just, really good friends and stuff like that. But that town's a competitive town, man. It's everybody wants to do something, make it happen, but it takes forever. I can remember I was riding with Sean, what's his name? Sean Camp. And we had this song on hold. I was working two jobs with this song on hold, man. And it was for George Jones. And we were waiting. And the next day I called to see about it. And the receptionist, they passed on that. And I was just devastated because I thought, man, I'm going to get a George Strait song. And I quit one of those songs. I just walked out, said, see you later, man. I was so pissed. But some of those hard things, and finally just little things would kind of happen and stuff like that. But one thing I was going to bring up, if you wanted to talk about it, was I got a couple stories on here I could bring up, and Ryan, he's got all these stories too. But one thing I was thinking about as I was going through music, and this may be a large jump here, and I don't want to do that. But I was just thinking about some of these records and how great they were. And one of them, Ryan, one of them was a Confederate Railroad.
Oh yeah.
And I really think you guys should think about doing a podcast on Confederate Railroad, because that record, Feed Jake, because you're on like that, you can never go back. And then Feed Jake, and that, when you listen to that record, I would say that is probably, I mean, with the Keith Whitley record too, but probably one of the most quintessential, records ever. I mean, Steve Earle, obviously that was really great stuff, but it was a lot of different, it was just Steve writing all that stuff. But like, just when I look at that record, I think I wonder if people realize just how amazing this record is.
People just know the singles, but they don't know the full body of work, how it was all presented. And as a writer or a composer, you're going to pay attention to that masterpiece of how not just the individual singles, but how that whole album was delivered. That, and that there was a lot of incredible, amazing things in Nashville. The public had singles that were picked by the marketing teams or picked by Clear Channel, being a monopoly, or picked by Anderson Merchandisers, who was the distributor of everything.
Yep.
The greatest stuff that was picked by the musicians like yourself. Most of the public never had that attention drawn to it. They never got the heads up going, this is what the writers and the artists pick, and this is why. And there's so much. I was that way with a lot of Joe Diffie stuff. I was that way with a lot of the album cuts. You had some great success with Kenny Chesney as well as with Tim McGraw. Talk about those, and then we'll work our way back into the stuff that we had success with, and then the stuff that we personally loved that motivated us to try to be better writers.
Yeah, Kenny Chesney was the turning point. I was actually at, I can't think of the little studio that was over there. But anyway, I was writing with a friend of mine, Tom Dampier, And I just had got at that point where I was so frustrated. I mean, people didn't have titles, they didn't have anything, and just it just they didn't have this barometer, man, to know. And I'm not. This sounds arrogant, but it's just the freaking truth. And if you don't have it, you need to get it. And I was in there one time with Tom. I said, dude, I said, we have got to get serious. You know, somebody had turned me on to him and stuff. He's a great guy and stuff. And we got to get serious, man. Look at what's going on out there. I mean, that stuff, it scared the crap out of me, man. You know, and I was dead serious about it. And I just started playing this song, you know, like this little lyric thing I had. I just started playing that. And I think it was like, that's all I had, you know.
Your music is silent. It's not
Yeah,
playing.
it won't let your music play. There's a setting on your phone that'll play your music, but it has to. Right now, it's got automatic noise cancellation, so it
Sorry about
doesn't.
that.
No,
It's
it's
So
okay.
okay.
anyway,
Yeah.
I basically just got kind of like, you know, I would get like that with people, even with publishers. I'd go in there and go, because I'm not a confrontational person, man. I don't want to be that person. I want to be a lover, you know. And so you know, really, man. So I got in there, and you know, we ended up writing this. Well, I wrote this whole first verse on it, and then he didn't really have anything, which is not a bad thing. It's not, because I love him. He's great. He was there. Everything about him was great, but it was a good thing. It was like, because what happened was, he got home and he called me and he said, "Man," I said, "I got the second verse," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess maybe." I was just being a prick, you know. Dude, he played it to me and it's like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "That's it, man!" And I was so excited, man. I was just like, "Daggone, dude!" It was just great. And we ended up getting it to some people over there, Renee Bell, and then Kenny was digging it, and I think Kenny dug my voice. And and that's anything you can have to do something's good, man. It's like it's not a, you know, anything you can. And so where he listened and did things the way I did them, and Tim kind of like did things vocally like I did, it was all good, man, because we wanted them to do it right. Hell, we'll go over here and play something else. You play that song to make us some money, so my wife don't freaking kill me. But yeah, so we did that. All of a sudden, and then next thing you know, it's like Renee Bell calls me up, and she goes, "Hey, man, we Kenny wants to cut this song." And I mean, listen, I was blown away. I was like, "You got to be kidding me! This is actually happening?" Because there was years before this. We moved here in '88. We moved to Nashville, Tennessee in 1988. That'll let you know right there. All the years. The first cut I got was Fraser River out of Cincinnati. They came down. I was working at uh, they don't think it TGI Fridays, man, which I love that place. Tex Cobb came in there one night, dude. Check it out. I was working the door. So many people came through there. Tex Cobb came through and he was bigger than you, Ryan. He was huge. He was huge. He came in there, and this store was like 27 years old, and the daggone cigarette machine was right there. He came in like with a jacket on, like a tent and awning had put it together for him. Came in there, was like pulling on this thing, goes, "What's up?" And I walked over there, and I knew what was up. As I went over there and I went, "Give me a second." I went boom, boom, boom on the side of it like that. And then I reached out and I knew how to pull it out to make it happen. I said, "You want marbles?" He said, "Yeah." And I pulled it out and it came out and the marbles came down. I took it, I handed it to him and he goes, "Who's this guy I think he is?" Frickin' Fonzie just turned around and walked out the door and disappeared, man. Frickin' Tex Cobb, dude. And then the guy from ZZ Top, he came in one night.
Billy?
Billy Gibbons came in. I couldn't believe how small he was, but he had that beard and stuff like that. He came in and was real nice, but I stayed away from him because, you know, people had told me don't mess with these people, whatever. Um, who's the guy that wrote that song? "That's Just the Way It Is." Da da
Oh,
da 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 da
Is
da.
that Bruce Hornsby?
Yeah, it was,
yeah.
and that first record was the first CD that you could buy. That was the first CD. Then after that, CD started working. Did you guys know that?
Did
Mm-mm.
not
The
know that.
first CD, was them guys. Those guys were the ones. Bruce Hornsby came in.
I've often wondered that now that you mention it.
Oh yeah, the very first CD, I think it was CBS or whoever, they put it out there as the first CD for the Bruce Hornsby record, which is a beautiful record. It's unbelievable, man. Great stuff. See, man, that music just keeps us going, dude. But so anyway, I came in there one night and this kid was in there and I had this song on hold, and I looked over and he had a Decca Records hat. And I went over and I got next and I said, hey man, I said, are you guys Fraser River? And Danny turns around and goes, why? Do you want to write a song for us or something like that? I said, no, you guys already got my song. Song called That's Why I'm Here. And that was my first cut that I got with those guys. Studio cut, went in there with Brian Tankersley, just a whole bunch. And I got my first cut and I got that record. And there's a lot of good records, got a lot of good songs on that record too that were great. So that just kind of started it. And then, I ended up just getting a few cuts here and there and stuff like that. And then I don't know, man, it's you start meeting people, like I remember when I first met Amy Mayo. I mean, I used to brag. I said, Amy, I was the first person that, her dad turned her on to me. Her dad was the one that put the two of us together.
Yep.
He wanted me to be, and that's the truth, man. Danny did that. It all figured out. And so Amy and I started writing, and so then this was great. We could write songs for females too, for girls and stuff like that. And we just started doing it. So man, that's before anybody. That's before Marv Green. That's before Chris Lindsay. I'll say this: they can know it. They know it's the truth. And I was like the first person. Well, we started working, man, and all the time, much did we were writing some stupid crap and everything like that. And finally, Amy called me on the phone. She said, "Hey, Bill." She was, "Hey, Bill, you got to get over here."
That's how she talks,
Yeah.
too.
Like,
She
"Hey,
sounds
Bill."
just like
Yeah, I
that.
love her. She's a sweetheart. She's got her own podcast too, man. But anyhow, so she gets over there. She goes, says, "Look at People Magazine." He said, "Everybody on here is calling their significant others. They're calling them their best friend." I said, "Well, let's write that." Well, I already had music for it and everything, man. I had the whole first part of the music, all of it. I had the music, bam, and we just went through it and got lyrics and put this thing together. And we didn't really know anything. We weren't sure, and this is where we'd all been through some stuff, and we'd had stuff that was on hold, and then it got off hold. And we walked in there one day. This is where we were at BMG, and Amy was in the other room, and I was doing something, and I heard Amy just like go. I like just whatever. I thought, oh shit, she probably got a damn cut or something. I was like, shit, man. I walk over and she goes, Bill, Tim said he's going to cut our song. And I'm going to tell you something. That was gigantic. It was unbelievable. It took so much weight off of me. It's hard to even think about it. But it was just a moment, that happened there. And I just was so excited. And then we were just waiting to see if it was going to get, cut on the album and stuff like that. And then we got down to it when it was a single. And then we went to Tim McGraw got on the awards and sang it, And before that, and then there was things down the road, other things came down the road and stuff like that. Tim was always really nice to me. And so was Kenny big time. I can tell you more about Kenny later, but he was really, he's just a really good guy. And I mean, these guys, you're an artist, stuff like that. Ryan, you've been out there. There's a lot of pressure, stuff like that. So anyway, just kind of kept working. Next thing you know, we just started getting some cuts, man. That thing with Tom Danfair that I was telling you about, Kenny cut that. And it was just overwhelming, because like we were ready to quit. I mean, we were like, man, I don't know if we can do this, man. But I think I got really serious. I think I buckled down. And not like I'm something great, but at one point I thought, you know what? I need to love this first. And most times, and it can be an accident, it may not work the way we want it to work. But for me, you just had to love it. If you loved it, if you could really tell yourself you love that, as opposed to, because what would happen, and you know this, Ryan, in Nashville, County Q and places like that, these guys are all working musicians. They came in from California and stuff like that, which I'm so glad they did. Dan Dugmore, all these guys, Glenn Duncan, God rest his soul. And we're losing people left and right, man. Unbelievable.
Glenn was my guy. Glenn was what I always called for Abel Kane. When I called him and brought him into Abel Kane, he thought it was crazy when I first did it, but he came in and played on the track. And Glenn, you got these rock monsters all in the room. And then we had him a nice comfy chair right in the middle. And for those that don't know, he had played with Earl Scruggs,
yes,
from the beginning, bluegrass royalty. Yep. And at the time, he was an older man, and pushing his 70s. And, he worried about his fingers getting cold and everything else. So he wore gloves with the fingers cut out.
Yeah, that's right.
We made him comfortable and got him sitting, and we put those headphones on him. And when he heard that wall of Marshall cabinets squalling and that Les Paul crunching, and then he was holding the banjo and he just started picking out that pattern. It was like he felt it. He felt it.
Hell
He
yeah.
watching him, that old bluegrass man, watching him make that rocker face. When he was playing that banjo, I'll never forget that single image. And his wife, beautiful, precious wife, Marcia, those beautiful people, him and his wife, they
Yes.
were always so gentle. They were always so humble, so gracious, and
Mm.
so kind. And that's what we're losing is that culture. What you said was competitive. It's always been competitive in the sense
Yes.
that we tried to be better, but we used to pull each other up while we were competing. And now it's gotten where there's a lot of isolation between the individuals. And if they are becoming partnerships, it's usually more transactional than it was for us. If you were successful back when we wrote together, and Josh Keir, all of us as we wrote together, I was so happy for y'all. You wouldn't have a bigger cheerleader, both figuratively and literally, than me screaming for you every time you guys knocked one in the head. I was so proud of y'all. And I don't see a lot of that now in the same way that we had it.
Yeah, it's crazy now too, man. It's like we got like, Ashley Gorley's got 100 number ones.
Hmm.
I mean, there's people that are involved with all of that too. So, but yeah, man, I can remember being in the studio I lived in the studio like you did for years, and Glenn was always so sweet to me. He was always my go-to guy. I'd always go ask him, and I remember there's a song we had called Painless. And I can remember like we got in the studio and he just started playing it right there. And then my band leader's like, "Oh, let's do that right now. Let's do that." They would know it. They like, "Catch it. Don't wait. Go. Just go." And I think that's a great thing when you think about it, as mechanically as it may seem, the way everything is structured in a studio, still there's that vibe in there, that mojo in there. And it's right. You've been there, you've seen it. And then you see where people had the idea that like, well, if we just go in the studio and get some guys to play on this, it'll make it a hit. And it never worked. It never worked. There had to be something. And I'm telling you, man, and you know this, I could look at players like Glenn. I could look at those guys and I knew that like, okay, this isn't going to work. And then sometimes once you get into it, well, you just finish it because you got another co-writer. You don't want him flipping out, having an aneurysm, and all that kind of stuff. I wish I'd have been a little bit more liquid to where I could go, wait a minute, man, but then getting that thing where you're on the schedule and everything. And it's like, but
Got to produce. You got to crank out numbers. When it started turning into a numbers game, that also became a thing. And people don't understand as a professional writer, a lot of times you have to weigh I'm supposed to have X amount of songs available, and you've got people that won't understand what you're trying to tell them. From the pitch side, you're like, but this isn't finished, or this isn't. They just want something from your name because your name's currently hot, and they want to get it out there. And you want stuff that's going to represent you well in 20 years. Is that accurate or
yeah,
no?
it is. It is. Music the whole industry really could have been a soap opera. It could have been a soap opera every day, the Nashville soap opera, because there were people in there that liked you, didn't like you. It's crazy. And it could be the most, simple things that like, well, one day he bumped into me and spilt some coffee on the sink or something. But it's like, I don't know, man. It's like all that stuff happens. And I guess it's in any kind of situation like that. But you could find out where there was favoritism. I had to fight that sometimes. I had to go in there and fight. I went in one time, was ready to just take a chair and smash it over the desk because I was losing so much money. They had screwed me so bad, dude. They screwed me so bad. It was really hard too because they gave Amy a great deal. And and like, I'm glad for her that she got that stuff. But then on my side, they didn't do that. And then I had to come back around, get a lawyer, and just go, look, wait a minute, man, this is some bullshit. Pardon my language.
Yeah,
But I mean, my bad.
it
But
ain't cussing if it's honest.
and the thing is too, man, because it's like it hurt me because I thought, what are y'all doing? And what it was basically it really wasn't the process. It was just the way it's like I said, it was the soap opera kind of thing. But one thing that really bothered me, and I want to see what you think about this, like think about without forgetting it. Do you remember how all of a sudden, and no offense to anybody, and you might have to go ahead and erase this, but it aggravated me that like all these older writers that were great writers, and you know these guys that wrote these big songs and everything, Bob McDill and all this. I remember seeing Bob McDill over there at the Welk building taking a pee. And a friend of mine was like, I want to say something. I said, if you do, I will punch you in the head. I said, you don't say nothing to these people. You go in there and pee and get the hell out. I'm sorry. You don't want to go sit there and say that to Bob McDill. I mean, just get out of there. And people just didn't know. And I'd kind of like nod. That's it. I'm down the hallway, man. But you know what I'm saying? But I think I got off track there a little bit.
Folks just need the room to be folks, and a lot of people get all geeked up when they see somebody and they have the impulse to run up and say hello to them or talk to them, but the restroom's not the best place to do it, or when somebody's trying to eat is not the best place to do it.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And people would do that, man. They would walk up there and just talk to whoever. But so I don't know, man. I'm really.
You made me laugh when you said soap opera. You said some people like you and some people won't. And I have to say this, and you can say what you want to say. You don't have to police it on here. But I laughed when you said that because I wanted to be sarcastic and go, surely nobody had a problem with little old me while I was.
Oh man. Well, one of the things I remembered is they kept hiring girls.
Yep.
To go in, and I know this is going to get us in trouble. You know that.
It won't. It's telling the truth.
But I'm telling you, it's like they would get these, and I would see this happen. You know, it's like there was. I mean, you and I both know the girls that were writers. I mean, you know who they were. But they get in there and sit in the room and do nothing. It drove me nuts. It didn't even drive me nuts out of some. If we could have got something good, it'd be great. It just drove me nuts. I'm like, why are we doing this? And it was like, I guess just another way they thought that they could. I don't know what it started with. I heard like, you know, older writers that were getting in the room because they get in there with a little pretty girl and stuff. I don't care about whoever. I'd come in there with a girl that's whatever. You know, I look at, you know, you think about all the girl, you know, writers and stuff like that. But Tracy Berg, man, come on now. There's a champion right there. I mean, she's amazing.
Her, Gillian Welch,
Yes.
Allison Krauss, the old, you know, the ones like Melba Montgomery, Sharon Vaughn.
Woo!
I mean, Victoria Shaw. Right?
I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
So
I mean, these were co-writers, all these people, and so for me, I wasn't about the ones who were just. I quit taking those. I don't need to sit there and write a song and then look across a coffee table at a pretty face that's just chewing the eraser off a pencil. I want to have a partner and a collaborator, right?
There you go.
And I was an equalist. I expected everybody to carry the same size bucket of water and not have equal respect, but then special considerations for something. And so I know exactly where you're coming from. Then they tried to hedge the bet with song pluggers, song executives. Then the labels were doing it. The publishing companies were doing it. And then everybody started chasing trends at that point instead of creating them.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong either, because it's like with writers and stuff like that, because you have writers in there that may not be writing this line. I mean, I'm talking whether it's a girl or a guy, I don't care. But don't get me wrong. There's so many people that have certain things where they can go in there and they do what they do. You know what I'm saying? But then at the same time, you know, there's situations. It's probably something you don't even have to worry about or think about, especially right now down the road. I'm not trying to be sour grapes or anything like that. My only thing was when I get in there and it's like they have nothing. You know, they'd have nothing. And then not only would they have nothing, then they would find something that was nothing and then try to like make that something. And I didn't like the fact that I couldn't ever just see if you got in there with Craig Wiseman. See, Craig was a great guy and still is a great guy and an unbelievable writer. And so was Brett James, God rest his soul, a beautiful person that we lost him because he always was so sweet to me. Here was this good looking man that could have been a lawyer, could have been an artist. He wasn't an artist, was a writer, and he always was like a brother to me. And I mean, where a lot of people looked at me as being the fat guy because I was the fat guy for years, and you knew that. But it's like Brett was always, he was so sweet to me. And I remember last time I saw him, how just he was always just just like a brother. And we spent time together too. There was different times when he was going through different things that like we hung out and stuff like that. And I was glad that I could be there for that. But the thing about Craig was that Craig would tell you the truth.
Yep.
Craig wasn't going to bullshit. He didn't have time. He was glad you were there, and I mean, he just was that guy, you know. And it's like, and Craig would write the whole song. That's how great he was. I mean, hell, you know that Jekyll Hyde. He wrote that whole song all by himself. Was a hit. Was it Barney Jekyll and who? What a great
And
cool
Bubba
song.
Hyde.
And Bubba Hyde,
Barney
baby.
Jekyll, Bubba Hyde.
Yeah, absolutely. And but Craig was always great, and he'd get up and go out and you know like out there on the balcony and smoke a cigar or whatever. But he was always a sweetheart, and I always loved to be around him because he just had such great energy, you know. And there was a lot to be learned from him.
I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I love this. I want to crawl through the damn phone and kiss that man on the damn face right now. I miss seeing him. I love him. Let me tell you something. I never did tell you this, and I didn't think to tell you on telephone. Do you remember the song that we wrote together called "Testify to Tenderness"?
Yes.
Well, guess what? You were singing it. Everybody was pushing because that was my record deal time because I wanted Bill Luther to sing on that song. I loved the way that you sang it, and there was no way God did not build me to be able to sell that song and sing that song as much as Bill Luther. These were conversations I had that you weren't a part of. So I made that real clear, and we went in and recorded that song. Well, guess what? The day I got married in Mount Juliet, we had that song blaring with you singing. So you sang,
Man.
and 27 years later, we're still hanging in there.
Oh man, that's awesome, brother.
You were singing to us on our wedding, and that I came across that song the other day. I'm ready to revamp it and redo every part of that song except for the Bill Luther part. So we may have to work out a way for you to record the vocals again remotely, because I'm ready to put the song out. If I had to put it out on Bottle Rocket, I'll put that thing out with Bill Luther singing on it, and we'll go to Cashbox with it.
I had a song that Jason Aldean and his wife did with their marriage, and I wasn't there, but I always thought that was sweet, you know. I thought, well, daggone, thank you. I mean, that's something we all want to do.
No, you have a bigger impact than you always have than you ever knew, and it wasn't the platinum that made you impactful. It was all the gentle whispers, because not every ripple becomes a tsunami, but every tsunami started with a ripple. And you've sent ripples out your whole career. And I don't think anybody's ever slowed your roll down and said, hey, Bubba, look at what you actually have done, not just what people talk about that you did.
Yeah.